It's kind of wild when you stop and realize just how much power your thoughts have over your life. Sometimes we treat our thoughts like background noise, but they're really running the show.
Totally. I've noticed that myself. Whenever my mindset shifts, even just a little, everything else in my day seems to tilt right along with it. My relationships, my energy, my outlook. It's like my brain is the control tower, sending out directions for everything else to follow.
Exactly. The control tower analogy is so spot on. Whatever happens in our lives really starts with what we're thinking in those quiet moments. It's almost like we choose our flight path with our thoughts.
That's a great way to put it. And honestly, when I look back on the last few years, I can see how the way I thought about myself actually shaped where I ended up.
What you just said reminds me our minds don't just influence how we feel, they really determine where we go in life. If you're always thinking negatively, you'll start to see everything through that lens, and it impacts your choices.
That's so true. I've seen people who are incredibly talented, but their own self doubt just holds them back. Sometimes it comes from what they've heard growing up, like those old tapes of "you're not good enough" playing over and over.
Absolutely. And sometimes we don't even realize our thoughts are steering us until we stop and really examine them. Like, why do I assume I'll fail at this? Or, who told me I was limited in this way?
Right? Questioning those patterns is huge. It's not about blaming ourselves, but just getting honest about what's been running in the background all this time.
Speaking of those background tapes, have you ever caught yourself absorbing stuff from TV, social media, or even the news without realizing it's shaping how you think?
Oh, all the time. It's so easy to just let things in, especially when you're tired or distracted. Before you know it, you start worrying about things you saw in a headline that has nothing to do with your real life.
Exactly. And it's not just media. Even the people around us, or what we let ourselves focus on, can program us in subtle ways. That's why it's so important to be intentional about what we feed our minds.
It's almost like curating a playlist for your mind, right? You have to choose what gets airtime and what gets skipped.
What really sticks with me is the idea that when we intentionally think God's thoughts, we're tapping into the most powerful mindset possible.
It's such a hopeful idea. It means we're not just stuck with whatever random thoughts hit us. We can actually reach for something higher, something that's rooted in love, truth, and purpose.
Yeah, and honestly, when I align my thinking with what God says about me, it completely changes how I see myself and others. It's like flipping on a light in a dark room.
And it's not just about positivity for its own sake, it's about seeing yourself and your situation through a lens that's bigger than your own experience or limitations.
That makes me think about this. When we talk about faith, it's not just about adding something to our lives, it's a whole new way of thinking. Kind of like leaving behind the old mindset and stepping into a new one.
Exactly. I used to think faith was just something you tacked on, but it's way more radical than that. It's literally dying to the old thought patterns, the ones that kept me stuck or feeling unworthy, and growing into something new.
And that newness shows up in what we seek, what we value, even in what we say yes or no to every day.
I love that. It's like your priorities naturally shift when your mind does.
Setting your mind on things above isn't about ignoring reality here, it's about letting God's vision set your baseline.
Yeah, I totally relate. It's not that we stop caring about our daily lives, but we're choosing to look at everything through a bigger, brighter filter. It helps me stay anchored when things get chaotic.
For sure. When we set our minds on what's good, right, and loving, it's like we're programming ourselves for a better response to whatever comes our way.
And the coolest part is the more we practice it, the more natural it starts to feel, like building a new mental muscle.
Of course, it's one thing to talk about all this when life is smooth, but what about when you're surrounded by negativity or old habits? That's when the real test comes in, don't you think?
That's the hardest part, honestly. I remember times when everyone around me was cynical or just didn't share my values, and it felt like swimming upstream. But it forced me to be more intentional about what I focused on.
And maybe that's the beauty of the challenge it pushes us to train our minds, not just drift with the current.
Exactly. It's like resilience training for your soul. You get stronger each time you choose to think differently, even when it's not the easy path.
What hits me hardest is the idea that our minds are a real battlefield. Sometimes it feels like there's an invisible tug of war going on inside.
Absolutely. And half the time, the toughest battles aren't out there, they're happening right between our ears. Old hurts, negative voices, fears, they all show up and try to take over the control tower.
And it's sneaky too. Sometimes you don't even realize you're under attack until you're deep in it. But once you start recognizing those patterns, you can start fighting back with better, truer thoughts.
That's exactly it. Awareness is the first step. Then you get to actually choose which thoughts get to stay and which ones need to leave.
What's been super helpful for me is just asking myself simple questions when a thought pops up, like, where will this thought lead me, or does this build me up or tear me down?
I do the same thing. Sometimes I catch myself spiraling and I'll pause and think, is this even true? Would I say this to a friend? It's amazing how much lighter you feel when you filter your thoughts that way.
And I love asking, would I be okay sharing this thought with someone I trust? That's usually a pretty good reality check.
It really is. And it's not about guilt, it's about being honest and curious with yourself, which is so much healthier in the long run.
You know, it's wild how what you think in private eventually shows up on the outside. Even if no one else knows your thoughts, your face, your attitude, your choices, they all start to reflect what's going on inside.
That's so real. I've had days where I'm stuck in a negative loop and it's like my whole vibe is off. People pick up on it even when I don't say a word.
But the flip side is just as powerful. When you fill your mind with hope and gratitude, it radiates out and changes the whole atmosphere around you.
Totally. It's proof that unseen thoughts really do have visible consequences, for better or worse.
Switching gears a bit, let's talk about how our thoughts shape our relationships, especially when it comes to love versus lust. People can get those mixed up so easily.
Absolutely. And the difference is huge. Love is patient, selfless, willing to wait and give. Lust, on the other hand, is impatient, demanding, and all about what it wants right now.
It's so important to recognize the source of those feelings. Is it really about caring for someone, or just about satisfying yourself? Because our thoughts steer us towards one or the other before we ever act.
That's such a good point. Building habits of healthy, loving thoughts sets the foundation for real relationships instead of ones driven by need or impulse.
So, we can't just dip our toes in now and then and expect big changes, right? I've noticed real transformation comes from what we do consistently, not just occasionally.
Definitely. The idea of habitually seeking what's good, making it part of your daily mental diet is so crucial. It's like you wouldn't eat one healthy meal and expect lifelong results.
Exactly. The more we feed our minds truth, gratitude, and wisdom, the stronger our mental immune system gets.
And when storms come, you've already built up those reserves. It's way easier to stand firm when you've made right thinking a habit, not just a last minute fix.
Speaking of habits, I love the idea of letting truth fill your mind extravagantly, not just a little, but overflowing. It changes the atmosphere of your whole inner world.
That's so true. When I fill up on wisdom and encouragement, it's like there's less room for negativity to sneak in. It spills over into how I respond to challenges too.
It's almost like when you have that overflow, you start reacting differently, almost automatically, more patience, more clarity.
Yeah, and it's not about being perfect. It's about giving your mind the best possible environment to grow and thrive.
The bottom line in all this is we really do get to choose again and again what direction our lives will take by what we choose to think about.
That's both empowering and a little scary, right? But it means our future isn't just something that happens to us, it's something we grow, one thought at a time.
Absolutely. If you want to change your life, start by planting new thoughts and nurturing them. Over time, they really do produce new habits, new character, and a new destiny.
And that's a hope filled way to live. Even if you've been stuck in old patterns, it's never too late to start building something better right here in your mind.